Right. Kuf Amud Aleph 101a towards the bottom. So, talking about visiting the sick, and another story on this discussion of a person's trials and difficulties in life being a blessing being seeing the positive in that it's a cleansing process, and Rabbi Kiva specifically was able to see that. So another story in that vein. And the line begins with the word Asher, and then it's Tan Rabbanon. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 lines from the bottom of the page. Fifth word is Tan Rabbanon. Tan Rabbanon, our sages taught. Keshachala Rabbi Eliezer. When Rabbi Eliezer got ill, same Rabbi Eliezer as before, it would seem. This must have been a different occasion. Nichnasu Arba Zakenim Levakar. There were 4 elders who came to visit him. In the previous story, it was his students, Nichnasu Talmidov, amongst them Rabbi Kiva, and here it's 4 elders coming in, also amongst them Rabbi Kiva. So Rabbi Kiva is a former student, at this point an elder, or unless it's 2 different occasions, earlier or later, I don't know, but this way the Gemara introduces it. Before it introduced his students, and amongst them was Rabbi Kiva, and here it's 4 elders. Rabbi Tarfon, Rabbi Yeshua, Rabbi Eliezer ben Azariah, Rabbi Kiva. Those are the 4 elders. Rabbi Tarfon, Rabbi Yeshua, Eliezer ben Azariah, and Rabbi Kiva. And in order, each one says like words of comfort to him, words of praise / comfort. And they say to him like this. And then Rabbi Tarfon states or says, literally means responds, but it kind of responds to the situation. Well, Amar, he says like this. Toivata, you, Rabbi Eliezer, are better the Yisrael of the Jewish people metipa shel gshamim than drops of rain. Why? Tipa shel gshamim, for drops of rain, but mahazeh is useful in this world. Rain brings life, so it's good in this world. But Rabbi, but you are teacher, Rabbi Eliezer, but mahazeh ubel mahaba, you are good for the people both here in this physical world and in the next world. In your teaching, you guide people to live a proper life here, which leads them to receive reward in the world to come. So you're valuable for both worlds. So you're better than rain, which is valuable only in one world. And then Rabbi Yeshua responds to the situation and comforts Rabbi Eliezer by says, Amar, he says, Toivatul Yisrael, you are better for the people, Yosim Megal Chama, more than the spinning of the sun. Again, for the same reason, the sun provides Balam in this world. Light, warmth, helps plants grow. Good for this world. Rabbi, but you are a teacher, Balam in this world, and in the world to come. And then the third similar statement, then Rabbi Eliezer ben Azariah, Rabbi Eliezer ben Azariah responds to Rabbi Eliezer and says, Toivat Yisrael, you are good for the Jewish people. Yosim Ma'ava'im, more than mother and father. Sha'avim, because physical mother and father, but Mahazah brings the person into this world. For Rabbi and a teacher, you Rabbi Eliezer, but Mahazah, you guide the person both in the physical world and into the spiritual world. So these are the 3 statements. Before we get to Rabbi Kiva's statements, you kind of see that they're progressively more intense. Rain is intermittent; it's not continuous, so it's intermittently it comes around, and it's good for the people. So Rabbi Eliezer, as a teacher, being good for the being good for the people compared to rain, would be kind of saying that even interacting with you every now and again is of great value. The sun, however, is not intermittent. It's always there. It's always there, even at night, right? It's always there. So perhaps saying Rabbi Eliezer is greater than the sun is saying that your consistent presence, praising Rabbi Eliezer not just as a valuable asset to the Jewish people, but actually praising him is consistent effort, like the sun, to be invested in Jewish people. And then further is father and mother. Father and mother, unlike, you have it, it's third line from the bottom. Unlike sun and the rain, which only provide for the world after the world exists, right? Sun and the rain only provide for people once people, they don't make people, but once people are there, they provide.
They They make the world.
Sun and the rain
People are here. They make the world.
make
The world.
sun and the rain make the world. No, the world already exists. It provides for the world, right?
We can't create life, that's the point. Father and mother create life.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Whereas father and mother bring a person into the world to begin with. So we're further praising Rabbi Lezer, not just that he provides for people, like, a student is already a good student. Now we can take them to the next level. No, you make them to begin with. Like father and mother. Rabbi Lezer is not just so it's like progressively praising him. Intermittent value, like the rain, consistent instruction and consistent value, like the sun, and then not just value to someone who's already around, but actually brings the person up from the beginning, makes him into who he is, like a father and mother, makes them, not just provides for them. So it's perhaps reading these things in progression. Now we got to Rekiva. All of these people.
Or you can say the son also, you have main benefit at daytime, but at night, but the parents is what they
By the day and night. Okay, so you can do in time also. Yeah.
Like that. Show me once in a while. So actually, only rain in the summer season. It's more in the winter season. So it's time for it's seasonal. This is daily, and this is all the time.
Yeah, it could be. Okay, so now we get to Rekiva.
So also the Mishnah with the mitzvah of a father, mitzvah of a rabbi is first.
Yeah, unless he's also That's true. There's a halacha like that.
They find a lost item.
A lost that a person, even not just lost item, but also Pinyin Shvuyim, various different mitzvahs when you have the option to either help your teacher or your parents. If it's not just a teacher who randomly teaches you, but a teacher who, like you're his protege, like he's invested completely in raising you, then helping the teacher would come first, unless your father also taught your Torah.
Or paid for it.
Or paid, yeah. Anyway, so related to this idea. So now we get to Rabbi Akiva. But all these three people who are praising Rabbi Lezer are acknowledging that Rabbi Lezer is in a state that's not good, and they're trying to make him feel good. They're not feeling well, but guess what? You're very valuable to people around you, and we love you. Like as people say when people visit the sick people, I tell them, everybody loves you. You're so valuable. You're so important to all of us, and that's kind of what they're doing. But Rabbi Akiva, in his mode, like we saw before, he's always looking at the positive, or even in the negative, sees in like we said yesterday, in the current state, which is painful, he sees the godliness and value in it. Rabbi Akiva does that here as well. And he says like this, Nena, Rabbi Akiva responds, Amar, and says, Chavivin Yisurin, pain is precious. You have to remember, Rabbi Akiva himself died in a very painful circumstance, and famously, we talked about this Gemara here a number of times, Rabbi Akiva famously said when he was being tortured that he's content now, because he finally gets to give up his life and really give sacrifice to Hashem. So, which is the Masmid, like from Teis HaYemim, which is the Masmid who literally burnt alive, yeah.
We'll see how much you like.
Yes. And and like Chrissy Lepler, Rabbi Akiva also had a long life, notwithstanding the fact that he died at the hands of the Romans at the end of his life. Anyway, so Rabbi Akiva says, Chavivin Yisurin, suffering is precious. So Amar Lahem, Rabbi Lezer tells the people around him. Yeah, well, not necessarily here. Let's see. Amar Lahem, so Rabbi Lezer says to his students, Samchuni, support me. Like, he was lying in bed, I suppose, and he tells them, help me sit up. The Eshma, and I want to hear Rabbi Akiva Talmidi, the words of Akiva, my student. It doesn't say Rabbi Akiva again, because it's a student, he calls him by first name. Sha'amar Chavivin Yisurin, who says that suffering is precious. So with the others, he was politely, thank you. And here he tells the students, lift me up, I really want to pay attention to what Rabbi Akiva has to say. And Amar Lei, Rabbi Lezer tells his student, Akiva, Zumin Einlach, how do you know this? Where do you get this idea that suffering is good? Amar, so Rabbi Akiva responded, Mikani Derdish, I'm extrapolating this from the verse. What's the verse? Because it's like this, Ben Shteim Esrei Shana Menashe b'Molchai. Menashe, son of Chizkiah, became king at the age of 12 years old. Menashe is one of the last kings in the southern kingdom before the destruction of the first Beis Hamikdash. His father Chizkiah was a wonderful king, especially with his tzidkus, with his righteousness. And we mentioned before that he could have been Mashiach, or in some way he was Mashiach. And his son Menashe was the reverse, was involved in idol worship. So says the Gemara, he was 12 years, quoting the verse. He was 12 years old when he became king. And he ruled in Jerusalem for 55 years. So 12 and 55, how old is he now? He's 77.
67.
Sorry, 67, 67. And Vayasar Rabbeinu Hashem, and throughout this whole 55-year tenure as king in Jerusalem, he was doing bad. He was doing that which is bad in God's eyes. Biksiv. Now the verse says elsewhere in Mishlei, and it says like this. Mishlei is divided into, Mishlei of course is Proverbs from Shlomo Melech, but at one point in Mishlei it says like this, at the beginning of chapter 25, it says, Gam Eila Mishlei Shlomo, these two are the Proverbs of King Solomon, Asher Tiku Anshe Chizkiah, that were recorded by the men of Chizkiah Melech Yehuda, king of Yehuda. Now we're citing this verse to tell us that Chizkiah had a whole group of people, Anshe Chizkiah, who were responsible for recording Torah. So now the Gemara comments. This Rabbi Akiva is commenting now, explaining to his teacher Rabbi Lezer how he came to the conclusion that suffering is good. So it says this: Chizkiah Melech Yehuda, Chizkiah king of Yehuda, this great tzaddik, l'chol olam kula limud Torah. He taught Torah to the whole world, as we see from this verse, because he was responsible for transcribing tons of Solomon's proverbs, King Solomon's proverbs. So clearly he was teaching Torah to everybody. And to his own son Menashe, who later became king, he didn't teach Torah. So how did Menashe end up like this wicked person, with such a holy father who's teaching Torah to the whole world, and certainly taught his son Torah? This I think is an amazing thing the Gemara is about to tell us. Ella rather, Mikol Torah shetarach by, with all the effort that Chizkiah no doubt put in to educating his son. Mikol Amosh Amaboy. Look, the Gemara recaps it with all the Torah is like effort, and Amal is like stress, like the yoke, the burden that he invested in educating his child. Loyal mutav. It didn't help him to do any good. Chizkiah did nothing wrong in raising his child. It's an incredible thing. People blame themselves. Why my child this, my child that. You could do everything right, but even your child has free choice. And here Chizkiah, who no doubt was a good parent, that's the point that Akiva is making, with all the effort, Gornish Kahalfen didn't help. Ella was the only thing that helped Menashe to come to the right path. Yisurin was when he hit a difficulty in life. Yeah, Shnemar, as the verse reads, V'adaber Shem Menashe, Vel Amoi, V'lo Yikshivu. God communicated to Menashe and to his people to try to get them to go on the right path, but they didn't respond. So what happened? Vayovel Hashem, this is the verse in Divrei Yomim, in Chronicles. Vayovel Hashem Aleim es Sardei Hatzava. God brought upon them the legions of armies, Asher Malach Ashur, which came from the king of Assyria, Ashur. Vayukadus Menashe, and they struck Menashe. They oppressed him. They captured him in chains, and they tied him up in chains and ropes, whatever. They took him to Bavel. So once they brought him to Bavel, what happens? And when he was in stress, then he turned to God and beseeched of Hashem, his God, his Lord. And he subjugated himself very much to the God of his fathers, and he prayed to him, and then God turned to him, responded to him, and listened to his supplication, and returned him to Jerusalem, to his kingdom. And then he finally learned that God is our Lord and God is King. So Halamadta says Rabbi Akiva, conclusion. So we learn that there's a value in the pain. Which is there's so many things to be said here. First of all, the one thing to be said about this. Let's just finish the Gemara on a simple level. Rabbi Akiva is telling Rabbi Lezer that how do I know that there is value in the stress? Because Menashe, with all the education that he had, didn't help him to become a good person until everything hit the fan, as they say in English, till things went downhill. So there's a number of things to say. First of all, in terms of the story with Chizkiah, what happened there, you can look at it two ways. One thing is, and I think they're both accurate. One is, like I mentioned this before, Chizkiah didn't do anything wrong. Your son has free choice. A person doesn't have to blame themselves for every fault. Our children, it's a difficult thing to let go of, because
where did I go wrong?
Where did I go wrong? What did I do wrong?
Typical question.
The reality is your children have free choice like you have free choice, and then it's one thing. The other thing is you might suggest, and I'm saying this with a little bit of hesitation because you're talking about Chizkiah, but maybe the lesson the Gemara is telling us is that in educating your children, at some point you even have to let them at a younger age face their own Yisurin, as it were. In other words, if they're getting everything, then they never had a chance to find their own path, and then finding their own path might come from more difficult means than otherwise. In other words, with giving your children everything at the same time, there has to be room for your children to mess up in a certain way, so that they can face their own problems and deal with it. Because otherwise, they have everything, and then at one point they're like, okay, you know what, I want to figure out life for myself. And when they do that, it can be who knows where. Anyway, I'm saying this with some hesitation, but perhaps.
There's not mentioned unfortunate, but I think I know seen it in life as well.
Sorry?
That sometimes it's very difficult for a son to follow his father's greatness. So therefore he tends to rebel.
It's a complex.
Because if that happens, the second world, like a great businessman or a great doctor, whatever.
But a lot of times it happens.
As great as his father, he realizes he can't do it. So then he tends to rebel it and drop everything.
But a lot
because half a doctor, be half a mensch, he's not a mensch at all. I've seen that.
But what happens is a lot of times
that's almost because the expectations are too high.
Exactly.
And that's exactly. And I think that happens. And I think that a lot of times that happens because but a lot of times it happens in the context of the parent pressuring the child and giving the child so much everything of what they have. Look, you can be like me, and the kid doesn't want to do that.
And he can't.
Right. So a lot of times when the parent steps back,
or not capable.
Exactly. But oftentimes the parent steps back and allows the child to kind of figure it out on their own and mess up early on a smaller scale. In other words, letting the child not be perfect on a smaller scale, so the child can mess up and see the values of mistakes and see the values of correcting mistakes. Don't have to go through it in much harsher terms later.
Also, sometimes you can't be a great Talmud Chacham, you can at least be a Talmud Chacham of a certain level, but otherwise you can't be all or nothing. They can't be Rosh Yeshiva.
Or like the Zohar says, there's Morei Torah, there's Morei Raisa, there's masters of good deeds and there's masters of Torah. In other words,
or even Torah, he can do Tanakh, he can do Mishnah, Gemara, different puzzles.
Parent excels in Torah, the child can excel in Milsadim, and the reverse.
Exactly.
Yep, in the reverse also.
So the thing is, you have to with the child's ability and focus in that direction, not to be an imitation of his father.
You're right. But I'm thinking here the context of the Gemara here is saying that everything he put everything.
That's my point.
Maybe that's the mistake. He put everything on top of him as opposed to just at one point letting him.
That's my point. He
navigate on his own.
He wanted to make him another Chizkiyahu, and he couldn't. He put too much effort. So like
at some point,
ease off and let him kind of see the level he's at, and let him be comfortable with that.
Yeah. Also, I
think too much pressure.
I was reading this somewhere that to some degree you have to let boys wrestle physically, and the reason why is because if you always stop them, then they never learn what the limits of their strength are, and then they could really hurt somebody. In other words, when they're wrestling and they get hurt to some degree, so they say, okay, I can't go so far, and they see their little brother start crying, they know, okay, you have to stop at this point. So they learn in the mess up, they learn the limits of what they can and cannot do. Right? If they're always giving everything perfect and they never, so I think the same thing's true in the spiritual kind of sense. If they're always, if they're giving everything, and then at one point when they become adults, like, okay, let me figure out myself, and they can end up being whoa. Anyway,
what do you think of
easier said than done.
What do you think of the example that he gave? I mean, just the example. The idea was, I'll show you. He's showing Rabbi, his teacher.
Yeah.
I could show you how pain actually results in
good.
So, are we talking here about the father's pain? Are we talking about here about Menashe's pain?
So talk about the literal thing. Talk about Menashe's pain.
We were talking before about Rabbi Akiva seeing good within the.
Yeah. So there's the third point I wanted to make. Yeah.
I find the example a little bit.
Okay, so there's the third thing I wanted to make. How does this relate to Rabbi Lezer? Rabbi Akiva is bringing an example of Menashe, who literally sinned on a massive scale. So he sinned and got whole people to sin, right? They idol worship, and he went through pain and he finally figured it out. Okay, what is it with Rabbi Akiva, Rabbi Lezer? Right. Rabbi Lezer, the previous story said he was almost missing nothing, right? So
that's why I don't see that.
Yeah. So
it's not like
how does it work? And that's the third thing I wanted to say, which is that the three people before were basically telling Rabbi Lezer, you're old, you're sick, you did amazing things in your life, and we loved you. It's great. Right. It's almost if they're saying, it's time to retire. It's okay. It's okay that you're in the state you are because
Yeah.
you were so good to the people, you were so valuable to people.
Right.
And Rabbi Akiva is
I
saying,
was trying to raise me,
Yeah.
saying, think of all the great things you've done.
that's right, that's what they're saying to him.
So feel good,
Exactly.
even though you don't feel good about what you've accomplished.
And Rabbi Akiva is saying, you're still alive, and Hashem chose to put you through pain. That means there's more you can do. And that is the most incredible thing. So when Rabbi Lezer hears that pain is positive, he says, raise me up. I want to hear about this because here's finally someone telling me that I still have value, not because I did things and I was good, but I can actually go forward and do more. That's I think the lesson Rabbi Akiva is telling. The lesson what Rabbi Akiva is telling his teacher is if you're still alive, and not just you're alive, Hashem actually chooses to put you through pain. That means there's more you can do. There's more you can learn. There's more you can grow.
Yeah.
That's incredible. It's how high the person gets, he can still climb even more.
It's just the comparison. It's a little bit
Yeah.
of a stretch. But anyway.
It's quite a Gemara. There's a lot to think about. You can be about this Gemara for days. And you have a wonderful day and a wonderful Shabbos, everybody.
Chodesh, good.
And a good Chodesh.
Understood.